If 7 years ago you looked at the DCEU and thought to yourself that it would look the way that it looks now, you probably would think you were in some crazy dream. Hi guys, and welcome to Film Artsy, your number one source for all things films and movies. My name is Elijah, and we've seen the DCEU really grow in a unique way. It always was kind of chasing the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, just because the MCU kind of got the lead on the whole superhero crossover thing before DC could jump on it. And ever since then, it seems like the DCEU hasn't really hit the same stride that maybe they originally thought would be possible when they first launched. But despite the things that the DCEU have faced as challenges, are they doing better now, or are they doing worse? Has the DCEU changed for better, or is it bad? Let's talk about it a little bit. We honestly think that there's two major perspectives that you can look at when making the argument for either the DCEU being better or worse. On paper, when the DCEU started, I think there was a lot of fans right away that just supported the idea of having something that would lead into a large scale. It wasn't really up to the expectation that people expected, and the next major issue that changed the DCEU was the fact that they didn't have contracts necessarily set up with a lot of the actors that ensured that they would be able to recast the same characters to come back for later movies. So what's really interesting about that point here is that while some people are excited with the new DCEU movies, other people who were really excited to have a series of movies that focused around the Justice League set of characters might not ever have that happen, or not have it happen for a long time, as we did get Justice League, but unfortunately it looks like so many actors have left the DCEU and so many movies have been canceled along the way that fans who originally wanted these characters to exist in this franchise for a long period of time aren't going to get that same storytelling like we see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where actors who were casted 11 years ago still come back to fulfill the roles in movies later on. So we can see the argument why people think the DCEU is getting worse now, as now with the route that the DCEU is going in the more recent years, is it's kind of breaking free from trying to do the team up, crossover, and origin stories of a lot of characters, and kind of just trying to start telling individual stories, which is probably what they should have done towards the beginning, but unfortunately it just didn't quite pan out that way. We know that there is a new Batman movie set to release with a new actor playing Batman, and there's talks of another Superman movie with another new actor looking to take over the role. But it's going to be really interesting if they're going to be able to recover. Weren't fans of Batman v Superman or Justice League actually have a lot to be happy about with how the DCEU has grown in more recent years. We've had some really great movies that have done well outside of the scope of them trying to do team-up movies and acting as if, or following the path of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The new Shazam movie did really, really well and was pretty well done across the board, and it was an out there topic and concept, but it actually worked out. And then we can look to other movies like Aquaman, and while he did live in the shadow of being announced with Justice League, told his own story and had the character go on his own story, and that was something really interesting to see. And there's a ton of other movies that have been announced that are in the earlier stages of development or coming out soon, like the new Joker movie, that will be really interesting to look at, as we are seeing a lot of retcons happening from the earlier days of the DCEU. We now have a new Joker, and we're going to be seeing a ton of other characters being recasted in the future. And while we don't know if some of the movies are canon anymore, or if they're going to keep some of the stories going the same way, we can see that at least on their own, these movies are starting to be good as standalone films. So then one day if we do get team ups, we have that to look forward to. But does that make the DCEU better or worse now? It really depends on where you were when the whole thing started. If you were a fan of the first couple of movies in the DCEU, you might not be a fan of the route that it's going, and the fact that all of the team up stuff it was building towards kind of just fell apart after Justice League released. And then on the other hand, if you couldn't get into the DCEU early on, these new movies that are coming out and doing something different are being well received, and they're doing well, and they're easier for casual viewers to jump into. I think it's really awkward because there's no middle ground that seems to work for everyone across the board as to where these movies are going and whether or not these movies are working or not. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the future. I do think that DC wants to do the team up movies still with Batman, Superman, and all the other cast of characters, but at the same time, it's in this awkward situation where they've already started it, but they didn't hold on to their main actors who played the roles. Fortunately, we still have Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot, who are still with the DCEU and have movie contracts, or at least recently been in films enough where we think that it looks like they'll stick around. But how do these characters who've already existed get incorporated into new actors? Are they just gonna hire new actors and act like they were always there, or are they going to reboot the Batman and Superman stories and then somehow try to tie them all back into these characters who've already met the old characters? It's really an awkward situation, and I don't know if even DC knows how to handle it quite yet. Still, it is something that could be shaped up and maybe refined a bit, but it's very important that they continue to make good films here on out and tell unique stories and have characters we care about first before trying to tie it together with some big team-up movies. There's no denying Batman v Superman and Justice League were ambitious titles. They were honestly fans' dreams of movies, but the fact that they hadn't really established the characters as much as maybe some fans would have liked probably resulted in the films not performing as well as maybe initially expected, or at least not shining a light towards how the MCU is received. They're good ideas, but it would have been really cool had they fleshed things out a little bit more, and it seems like maybe the studio was trying to push things out a little faster. But we are curious with where the audience stands on a lot of these topics, because on one end, we think that people who liked it at the beginning might kind of have lost interest by now because the characters they cared about back then aren't as prevalent now. And then the people who couldn't get into it in the beginning are kind of jumping on now because the characters are interesting and hopefully will stick around for a little while longer. So we really wanted to turn this one around to you guys and see what you guys thought. Do you think the DCEU is better now, or is it worse now and better before? Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. We want to turn this into more of an open discussion about the state of the DCEU. We're kind of in this in-between stage where we don't really have a roadmap necessarily telling us exactly what's coming in the future, similarly to what the Marvel Cinematic Universe has. And it would be really nice if DC kind of gave us a roadmap and then stuck to it, because remember, we had a bunch of movies that were announced and never came out. But nonetheless, we're optimistic about the future, and hopefully fans from both sides can get some sort of service that is great for everyone. But let us know what you guys think. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on for more videos just like this, and we'll see you guys all next time with a brand new video. Bye, guys.
Talking?
I'm about to.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Hi.
Hi. See you guys.
Know anybody?